Two organizations affiliated with the United States United Nations system. Organizations affiliated with the United Nations system are diverse and cover a wide range of functions, from humanitarian aid to environmental protection. And from international law to economic development. They typically work closely with the UN and its member states to address global challenges, often aligning their activities with the goals and principles of the United Nations. Here's a closer look at their roles. Humanitarian and development assistance. Organizations like the World Food Program, WFP, United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, UNICEF, and the United Nations Relief and Works Agents for Palestine refugees, are critical in providing humanitarian aid and development support, focusing on food security. Child welfare and refugee assistance. Environmental and climate change initiatives. Entities such as the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. UNFCCC and the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. UNCCD spearhead efforts to address environmental concerns and global climate change. Economic development. The United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, UNCTAD, aims to facilitate economic development, particularly in less developed countries, through policy advice, aid, and support in trade-related issues. Peacekeeping and legal affairs. The international criminal tribunals for the former Yugoslavia, ICTY, and Rwanda. ICTR, and the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, ITLOS, played vital roles in international justice. addressing war crimes and legal disputes related to maritime law, health and social issues. The Joint United Nations Program on AIDS, UNAIDS, and the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, focus on global health issues, including HIV, AIDS, and reproductive health, gender equality, and women's empowerment. UN Women is dedicated to gender equality. And the empowerment of women for promoting women's rights and participation in global affairs. Education and research. The United Nations University conducts research and education to resolve global challenges. While the United Nations System Step College provides training and capacity building for UN personnel, urban development and housing, UN Habitat works towards sustainable urban development and adequate housing for all. Refugee protections. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees is responsible for protecting and supporting refugees worldwide. Project services. The United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, offers management and technical services to various UN programs and projects. Human rights advocacy. The United Nations Human Rights Council works to promote and protect human rights around the globe. Drug control and crime prevention. Previously separate entities, the United Nations Drug Control Program and the United Nations Office on Drug Control and Crime Prevention are now integrated into the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. Focusing on combating drug abuse, illicit trafficking, and international crime. These organizations, among the other within the UN system, collaborate with member states and various stakeholders to address complex global challenges, often requiring coordinated international responses. So, UN specialized agents. The United Nations has numerous specialized agencies, each with a unique mandate and focus area. I will provide an overview of some key UN specialized agencies, describing their primary functions and objectives. Please note that due to character limitations, this will be a brief summary of each. World Health Organization, WHO, focus on international public health, is responsible for global health responses, standard setting, and health research coordination. Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, works to defeat hunger and improve nutrition and food security. It provides support in agriculture, fisheries, and forestry. United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. UNESCO aims to promote world peace and security through international cooperation in education, arts, sciences, and culture. International Labour Organization, ILO, focus on promoting right at work, encouraging decent employment opportunities, and enhancing social protection. International Monetary Fund, IMF, works to ensure the stability of the international monetary system. It provides monetary operation and financial stability by lending funds to member countries. World Bank Group consists of 5 institutions focused on providing financial and technical assistance to developing countries for development. Programs that are expected to improve the economic prospects and equality of life for people in those countries. United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, provides humanitarian and developmental aid to children worldwide. It focuses on child protection, education, and emergency response. World Trade Organization, WTO, deals with the rules of trade. Between nations at global or neo-global level. It's a forum for negotiating trade agreements and settling trade disputes. United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, protects and supports refugees at the request of government or the UN itself. And assist in their voluntary repatriation, local integration, or resettlement to third country. International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, works to ensure safe, efficient, and orderly growth of international civil aviation. It sets standards and regulations necessary for aviation safety, security, efficiency, and regularity. International Maritime Organization, IMO, responsible for regulating shipping. It focuses on safety and security of shipping and prevention of maritime pollution by ships. World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, dedicated to developing a balanced and accessible international intellectual property system. Property system. It provides services for protecting IP across countries and resolving disputes. International Telecommunication Union, ITU, specialized in issues concerning information and communication technologies. It allocates global radio spectrum and satellite orbits, develops technical standards, and strives to improve access to ICTS. United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, promotes industrial development for poverty reduction, inclusive globalization, and environmental sustainability, International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, focus on rural poverty reduction, working to empower poor rural men and women to achieve higher incomes. And improved food security. Mm.
The Age of Conflict. Part E. United Nations Organization. Part 1. Introduction. The League of Nations was founded after the First World War to establish peace and security in the world. But it came to an end with the beginning of the Second World War, as it failed to prevent the war. But the need for such an organization was felt by all the countries. In 1941, even as the Second World War raged,
I need to find the best way to learn math and science.
It's Brilliant.org.
Whoa.
Brilliant has thousands of interactive lessons in math, science, and computer science. You'll solve fun problems and learn from clear and intuitive explanations. Brilliant gets you hands-on to help you learn by doing, because studies show that interactive learning is 6 times more effective than one.
the American President Franklin Roosevelt and the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill announced the Atlantic Charter. The main objective of the Atlantic Charter was to establish an international organization for resolving international issues through peaceful means and prevent future wars. To plan the formation of such an organization, the Allied nations held meetings at Washington, Quebec, Tehran, and Yalta in the following 3 years. Finally, in April 1945, at San Francisco, 51 countries sanctioned the plan of the organization. Thus, on 24th October 1945, the United Nations Organization was founded in New York. Objectives of United Nations Organization. The UNO resolution consists of 111 points that states its objectives. The 4 main objectives of the UNO are to establish international peace and security, to solve international crises through justice and international law and prevent wars, to avoid discrimination of nations on the basis of strength, facilitate friendly relations, cooperation, and coordination among nations, and thereby create a healthy atmosphere for world peace. To bring all nations together for solving economic, social, and cultural problems. In order to achieve these objectives, the UNO lay the following restrictions on its member nations. Equal status to be given to all nations. Each member nation will abide by the rules of the UNO. Neither UNO nor any of the other member nations will interfere in a nation's internal issues. No weapons will be used for resolving conflicts within the member nations. Chapter 2, 20th Century, the Age of Conflict. Part E, United Nations Organization. Part 2, the structure of UNO. The UNO has its constitution for achieving its fundamental values and objectives. It has 6 organs or branches as stated in its constitution: the Assembly, the Security Council, the Secretariat, the Economic and Social Organization Committee, the Trusteeship Council, and the International Court of Justice. 1. General Assembly. The Assembly is the parliament of the UNO with a structure similar to that of our Lok Sabha. It consists of representatives of all member states of the UNO. Each member nation can send 5 delegates, but each nation has the right of 1 vote only. It is a platform for the member nations to express their grievances. The Assembly meets in regular yearly sessions to discuss on issues endangering global peace, observe the administration of the UNO, elect non-permanent and other representatives in the Security Council. Decisions on issues are by majority, but the Security Council has the final word. In 1953, Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit of India became the first woman president of the General Assembly. 2. Security Council. The Security Council is the executive body of the UNO. It started with 11 members, but an amendment to the UN Charter in 1965 increased the council membership from 11 to 15. America, England, France, Russia, and China serve as the 5 permanent members. The remaining 10 non-permanent members are elected by the Assembly for a term of 2 years from among the member states. Any resolution or decision to be passed by the Security Council requires the votes of all the 5 permanent members. If any one of the 5 permanent members cast a negative vote, the resolution or decision would not be approved, even if it is supported by majority of the members. This concept is called veto or negative voting. The main tasks of the Security Council include the following. A. Discussing the issues endangering the international peace. B. Punishing the guilty and the disobeying member nations. C. Taking action against the aggressive nations with the help of the military of the member nations. D. Granting permission for new membership. Three. Secretariat. The Secretariat is the chief administrative office of the United Nations, which coordinates and supervises the activities of the UNO. The head of the Secretariat is the Secretary, who is appointed by the General Assembly on the recommendation of the Security Council for a term of 5 years. Trygve Lie of Norway was the first secretary of the UNO. The Secretariat has many departments, the staff of which is elected from the citizens of the member nations. The secretary is responsible for attending all the meetings of the UNO and taking part in discussions in the meetings, arranging meetings of the assembly, placing important issues before the Security Council for discussions, controlling administration of the other departments, preparing the annual report of the UNO. Four, Economic and Social Committee. The Economic and Social Committee started with 18 members. The UN Charter was amended in 1965 to increase the number of members from 18 to 24, and then again in 1973 to increase the number to 54. The tenure of each member is 5 years, and 1/3 of the members retire every 3 years. The new member nations are elected in the annual general body. The main function of the committee is to solve international problems of economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian nature. It is responsible for protecting human rights, fundamental rights, and framing rules and regulations. The committee fulfills its responsibilities in collaboration with different supporting organizations like World Health Organization, WHO, Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and International Monetary Fund, IMF. 5. Trusteeship Council. A trusteeship or trust territory is a colony or territory placed under the administration of one or more countries under the charge of the United Nations. The Trusteeship Council was established to supervise the trust territories and guarantee that appropriate measures were taken to lead them to self-government or independence. The permanent members of the Security Council are the members of this committee. The Council selects its own president and has no veto right. The main responsibilities of the Council are tracking the progress of the countries, safeguard the interests of the inhabitants of the countries, understanding the political, social, and educational problems faced by the countries, to provide freedom and self-administration, submit report to the Greater Committee. With the independence of Palau, formerly part of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands, in 1994, there are no trust territories at present. Thus, its mission being fulfilled, the Trusteeship Council suspended its operation on 1st November 1994, but continues to exist on paper under the United Nations Charter. 6. The International Court. It is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. The headquarters of the International Court is at Hague in Holland. The court is composed of 15 judges. Each judge, representing a single member nation, is selected by the recommendations of the Security Council for a tenure of 9 years. Unanimous judgment is given in the court, but in case of a tie, The deciding vote is given by the Chief Justice. The responsibilities of the International Court are to interpret international law, to provide judgment to the matters registered in the court, to advise the greater committees as and when required. Chapter 2, 20th Century, the Age of Conflict.